Hi, I'm AR, and I'm a leadership consultant.
AR, thank you for joining the Just Some BS. I never say that at the beginning of my podcast, probably because I'm too nervous, but I'm not nervous with you, so I'm gonna throw it out there.
It's all good. You should be
So,
nervous.
yeah, I don't know. These things still make me nervous a little bit, but to be a consultant, I'm assuming you need experience, and I would like to know a little bit about your leadership experience.
Oh gosh, leadership experience. It's kind of something that always happened to me.
Mm,
Um, Even as a young child, I ended up in leadership roles in school and other places. But I really didn't take a leadership role until I was in my mid 20s.
okay.
I had a boss who really saw my potential. And from about 26 on, I really was taking executive leadership roles very
Wow.
quickly and growing and ascending in the company pretty quickly in the companies I was in. And that mentor said to me one day, "You're going to run a company by the time you're 35." And I thought he was nuts. And I was running a company by the time I was 35. So there you go.
What sector was this in?
It was in financial services banking.
Okay. What do you think you were displaying that someone noticed it that quickly?
I think I was good with people. I
Okay.
think I was good with process, and putting people and process together was just critical for an operations role. And so I was really good at seeing the work and planning for it ahead of time. So I always had a
Mhm.
long view, but I could see how to break it down into processes and work that people could get it done and get accomplished. And I think I was able to have good communication up to whether
Mm,
it's your board or other executives is really important. It's a different language. Communication down is really important, but that's different too. That's a different language. And I was able to speak both. So I was really fluent in working with those above me that I was accountable to, as well as break it down into small pieces for the frontline teams, which
mm,
was a unique. I used to call myself the translator, because that was a unique
yeah.
gifting that I had.
Yeah, so you probably you had many, 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 many bosses. Because you
I
probably grew
did. I had many bosses. My first boss was my dad. I grew up on a farm, a family business, and my dad, and of course, I had three older brothers. They bossed me around too. So I learned very young about getting work done, working hard, doing a job until it was finished, teamwork with my brothers and my dad and my sister too. My sister was in there. So I still look at those lessons of
Mm,
teaching me leadership very young, because leadership's about getting the work done, right? Getting to an end goal, um, and being able to communicate it well.
I don't know if I've heard many people say leadership's about getting to an end goal. I think it's very people
Really?
focused. Yeah, I don't know if I've heard that often, AR, actually. And I'm not even sure you've said that to me before, even though you're my coach.
But coaching is about people, but it's about growth as the individual, which is a goal, right?
Sure.
Or
Hmm.
it's growth in the areas they influence, because all leaders influence. They influence
Yeah.
up, down themselves, honestly, and their families. So, yeah, it does have a goal in mind. It may not
Yeah.
be make more money, but you know what I mean? It's about
Yeah. Yeah.
growing as a people, as a person.
That's really interesting. The other thing that kind of stuck out to me there was at 26, you were being told this, which if I think back to when I was 26, like I was so immature. I wasn't even using the right words half the time.
I
So,
don't know if I was either, but something, no, we were getting results. I remember taking
ah,
over a business unit that was struggling. And I'm young. I have a lot of insecurities. I wasn't that confident. I thought, well, I'll give it a shot and see what I can do. Right. And went in
yeah.
there, got to know the people, got to know the work, got to know the process, restructured, and became profitable. And I'm like, wow, I can do this. Right.
Mm,
And um, yeah, a lot of it is who can you trust, right? And how do you get into their heads to know their potential and what they're good at, right? And that's not everybody's gifting.
yeah. No, I would agree. I think that's a really one, then you start moving your teammates around the bus seats, maybe not off the bus, just in a different bus seat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Mostly
makes
it
a lot of
was
sense.
around, yeah, finding out what they're good at, letting them try things. If it didn't go well, you intervene quite quickly, right? You have a conversation, you move them around. There are times people have to be moved out. Um, but sometimes they knew that. Like that was a healthy conversation. Like, is there something else in the organization you can do? It wasn't necessarily leaving the company, it was leaving the role.
So at 35, you're running your own company. What were you running at that point in time?
At that point in time, it was still under the umbrella of a bank holding company. So we were actually running a bank. I was president of a bank here in mid-state Pennsylvania.
Where did
And
you go next then?
where did I go after that? After that, when we sold the bank in 2011, and I was a board member, shareholder, all that, and two of us partnered together and started a consulting company. And we were selling custom solutions to banks and mortgage companies, mainly technology focused and
Hmm.
automation. That was something that I loved. I don't tell very many people. Actually, I get into banking, and the first job I had in banking was to do a major conversion to a different software platform. And I was kind of like the CTO,
So
but
like
it
an
was,
ERP implementation, that type of thing?
yes, yes, totally.
Why are you laughing?
Because back then we were doing things on typewriters and we were putting it all on
Okay,
printers
that's
and
funny.
computers. So for you, an ERP is just software. For us, we had to get printers and
Oh.
everybody, people got laptops and PCs on their desks. So it was huge. And
Hmm.
I was really good at project management. And when we did that whole project, and again, that was the first time I was in banking, I learned the whole bank because everybody had to go on it, right? So
Yeah.
I would go function to function and learn everything. And when that whole project was finished, I ended up running the whole operations of the bank because I knew everybody, I knew how it all fit together, and I was pretty good with people to get things done. So um, it's a little different today. That was a long time. You were talking over 40 years ago.
No, I understand, but man, even at that young age, you had such a wide spectrum of what leadership and operations and process look like from multiple angles, departments, what it all looked like. Because going even as a bank consultant and then taking over, that's even a huge leap. Because most
Mm-hmm.
consultants you're working to an end almost to
Mm-hmm.
get them to a point where they're super happy, and then you ended up sliding into that overarching role. That's pretty fascinating. I don't think I knew that. Hmm.
Yeah, maybe not. And the other thing, there was people that quit that didn't want the automation. So there were certain places we had to hire as we went, right, to fill roles. And sometimes it was young people, not unlike what we're facing today with the young people
Right.
coming in. But I really embraced it because they embraced it, right? And I taught them the rest. I had a department at that bank that couldn't balance every night. And so I moved the people out that handled all the cash management and the checks and everything. And I put in two young people and I said, here's what we're going to do. Three of us are going to be glued together for 2 weeks. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. And that they stayed with me the whole time I was there. They were amazing because they were willing to grow, they were hungry to learn, and they weren't afraid of technology. So,
Hmm.
um, but
Much
they,
like today.
yes, but they solved a core issue because everything they did flowed downhill. So, however they put and deposited things affected everybody. So, I knew if I fixed that, that was going to fix a lot of downstream issues, right? And so, you might ask me, how did I know that? I'm not sure how I knew that, other than I dug into processes and I looked at stuff that was happening downstream, and I'm going, got to stop that. That's easy if it was done right the first time, right? So we used to have a little logo in that bang, do it right the first time, right? And if you don't
Hmm.
know, ask. And that was our big culture shift. We turned it around in a year. It was amazing.
That's
Great
so
outcomes.
interesting. It's so you pretty much followed the creek back up the mountain to figure out where the source, right? I had a very
That's right.
similar issue when I had to go to New Jersey for a job because we had like major AR issues because the customer wasn't paying because they were negating all the bills because our timesheets were wrong, which were feeding all the invoices, which ended up
Right.
being wrong.
Right.
And then, yeah, people are like, why are we worrying about timesheets? I'm like, this is the source of the bleeding.
That's right. I know. And like, customers were sending in checks to make loan payments. And the people before these two young ladies worked with me were waiting a week to deposit the
Oof.
checks, right? So we had to set standards. Every check that came in every day, nobody went home until those checks were deposited because we wanted to cut down the number of phone calls that came in. Didn't you get my check? Where is it?
Right.
I still
Correct.
seeing that it's due. So that's just one example. There's other things, but I'll give you one example.
Yeah, that's really good. I'd be the person that'd be checking every, like, okay, 6 hours, that should already be in. Now I just go online.
That's
Well,
right.
I mean,
we didn't have online banking.
right, but holy smokes, like, how important is deposits every 6, 12, 24 hours now, right? Because people are
Right.
checking instantly.
Right.
That's interesting.
I was around when they put the first ATM in,
Come on,
and that was a big change. To teach our employees not to go to the teller line because that's inefficient, right? Go to the ATM so the tellers can work with customers, right? And that was all new.
Did the employees think, like AI today, this is going to take my job?
Yeah, totally.
Interesting.
That's how they thought. It's his same analogy. You got it, Brandon. So change is always. I'm a great change agent.
Hey!
So you're guiding people through change, right? That's what leadership's about.
We've been through it a million times.
I know. We all get stuck somewhere along the line.
Sure. And yes, there may be a little less tellers, but maybe they just moved into, a different sector, market, or whatever.
That's right.
If you're a good employee, they're going to find you a space, right? That's how that works.
Always. They were able to have, they weren't as rushed because they had less clients. They were able to have deeper conversations.
More personal.
They were able to get the other customers' needs, right? Which benefited the customer and the bank. So absolutely. There's always things to do.
What else? So after that, did you do any other leadership before you got into like full consulting? I don't even know what the word is.
I did. I ended up working for a company in Buffalo, of all places. I went there. I knew the CEO was starting a U.S. headquarters. He was a Canadian company. And I helped him organize client services.
Okay.
That sounds easy, but you're a national company and there was a lot of training, there was a lot of structuring. And so my days were spent mainly, I did work, mentoring and helping my staff with customer calls, but most of it was coaching them, right? And we were growing so rapidly and we had a lot of young people. Our CEO really believed in that generation and he wanted young people. So some of us that were a bit older in leadership, we're bringing them in and teaching them how to lead, how to lead with their customers, right? They all had customers that were assigned to them, how to lead their peers and how to have good communication with executive team. And I did that for 3 years. That was really rewarding. Saw a lot of good people come through there, young people. Some came for 2 years and then went on and did other leadership things, which I still feel like it's what I was called to do. After doing that, I kind of worked myself out of a job because we were well structured and it was well set. And I'm a big change agent. I'm good leader to go in, figure it all out, the people, the processes, get it all in place, and then it's replicable, right? And so I knew that time had come. So I came back home in 2019 and I said, I thought you might ask me this question. I actually wrote it down on a little slip of paper. And it's still in my drawer today. On May 14th, 2020, I said, you know what? I'm going to find a way to be a full-time leadership consultant and coach. That's who I am. That's what I love. So I'm going to go for it all in. And
that was quite the time period to make that stamp, AR.
It's during COVID.
Well, I mean, we needed leadership consulting more than ever.
I know. It's true, isn't it? It never goes away, ever.
Yeah, you're correct. So with all of that experience, let me ask you a deeper question. Do you think you can consult without experience?
I think it would be hard. Because experience gives you an edge to know how to ask the deeper questions. And I'm talking more CEO executive coaching. I'm not talking
Sure.
frontline coaching. Probably frontline coaching is more teachable. It can be put into a curriculum based teaching. I think at executive levels where I'm working, you have to know all the pieces that an executive has to deal with. And I think, part of my work that I'm doing now with Vistage, like they train us as coach, but most everyone who is a chair like I am has had executive experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like it'd be tough to help a problem that you don't have. Like I know a lot from our Vistage group, it's the perception or what somebody else has experienced with the, issue processing that helps. And I think that would be tough if you've never walked, down that path or some other path at least.
Yeah, it definitely makes you more dynamic. That doesn't mean, so I'm going to add something onto that. I have a coach, and I think it's really important that if you're going to be a really good leadership consultant and coach, and you talk to your people about their blind spots, you've got to work on your own at the same time. And so, I did go through the Vistage coaching program. I went through another coaching program, and now I meet with a coach once a month because there's always things you can be better at. Being a coach is a constantly learning, changing environment too, just like what executives have to deal with every day. So how much experience? I don't know. Could I have done it 15 years ago? Probably. I can't put years on it, Brandon, but I can say you want to be experienced at it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I had a conversation today, and it was around being surprised. I remember being surprised that I could lead people for jobs that I've never done, but this is kind of we're kind of going the polar opposite of that argument in this scenario. But I'm wondering if it's because it's maybe complexities of the problems. I'm not really sure, from an executive standpoint versus, other things. But it could be, the nuances are so much deeper when you're talking about leadership coaching that, that experience is so important. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't think you have to do every job. I've never done your job. I mean, I've been a CEO, but I wasn't a CEO of a fabrication shop like you,
Right.
really of anybody in the group. But
People are
I don't
people.
think that, it's still leadership. It's still people. It's still processes. It's still reading financial statements, right? It's still learning to make a profit, learning to understand how you show up because you're part of the equation, right? With managing people is how you manage yourself.
So your big switch over, I think you just mentioned, was you kind of worked yourself out of a job of operations, which led you into making this decision in May to say, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. And that was from Buffalo. You moved back home. What was the hardest part of that switch?
Hardest part of that switch is not showing up at an office every day with lots of people and solving lots of problems. Because you think, especially when you're in operations, something always goes wrong. Some people are like, oh, I want to be a CEO. I'm like, you ready for everything to go wrong, right? Because that's the world of operations. That's why you're a CEO, to solve problems, right? And that was a little different for me that people weren't walking in my office and calling me on the phone and asking for my advice, it was just very dynamic. Part of me was ready for a different pace, but that was a big change to go from high pace to, I'm going to build a business. I'm going to build a consulting business, right? So a big difference. And building your consulting business, you're doing all of it. You're doing the sales side of it. You're doing the operations side of it, sending the emails, doing the phone calls. And I was back to doing everything. And before I had staff to help me.
How long did it take you, one, to get over that weirdness that you were, like, I guess once you got into the grind, you were like right back in it. You forgot about what going off. What did that feel like to get your first customer?
It was awesome.
I bet it was.
It was like, yes, I get a chance to really prove to myself, right, that I can really do this. So, it took a while to get the first customer, but once it did, it like built my confidence, right, for the next conversation. And, one thing that's true about me is I'm a long looker. Like I'm willing to wait. I can delay gratification. So even if I want 12 people that I'm coaching and working with, I know one gets me one step closer to that. And I'm always really good about that. Always saying, you know, I'm going to get up tomorrow. I'm going to go for the next one. I'm going to get up tomorrow and go for the next one, because I think in the core of me, this has always been with me to be a coach and a consultant, because I feel like I did it my whole career. Now it was just to put it out in a different platform as a consultant versus as an internal employee, so to speak. A lot of my history, I have to tell you this funny story. So that one where I did the ERP system, this is a true statement. Every employee that needed to be rehabbed, they sent to me.
You were the firefighter.
I know. I was rehabbing people, or saying, oh no, they can't be rehabbed. They got to be left go. That was like, I learned so much about myself in that situation. Like, why is this happening to me? Everybody's sending me, everybody needs to be rehabbed. So I think coaching, I've been doing it most of my career. I just had a different title to it.
Did you ever have any doubt that you were going to make it in the consulting?
Sure. Yeah, doubts. You know, people take a chance on you.
Yeah, they do.
They take a big chance. And the other thing is, with coaching and consulting, there's a certain amount of rapport goes with it. You could have all the knowledge, but if you don't have that rapport, there's only so far you can get, because people will only let you go so far. So especially on the coaching side of consulting, you got to really create an extremely safe place to be vulnerable. And that's where the growth comes. And if that client can't get there, the growth doesn't happen. And now I feel like I failed, right? And it's not working. So,
how hard do you push in those scenarios?
I can only push as far as they're willing to go. And I can usually tell when somebody can't go deeper, and I call it. I usually say, I'm not sure if this is working well, right? Are you growing at the pace you want to be growing? Are you getting to the place that you're getting things resolved in the way you think they need to be? So I will have crucial conversations with clients, because it's really important. And I had a client say, no, wait, what are you talking about, right? And we actually went deeper because of it. And I am not a coach. I have to go deep. I just, that's my style. And I don't know that every coach is like that.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's huge value to me.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I know when we have our one-on-ones, even in our group meetings. How nervous were you for that first session, like that first one-on-one or that first coaching session? Like, were you having to hype yourself up, or you just going in saying, hey, I've done this for my entire life?
No, honestly, I had a little cue card that had questions on it.
I love it.
Now, the interesting part is I had to do that because I wanted to make sure we had questions. I didn't know how this was going to go. So the funny part is I didn't have to use a lot of them. Once it got started, it moved, and my intuition
became natural.
Yeah. So when I went into it, I had a little bit of things like, well, other coaches asked these questions, and I got these questions from another coach, and that was really effective. And I think what I had to learn was I had my own questions in my own way. But I had quite a few little cue cards at the beginning.
AR insiders right now.
I'm like, okay, so I really want to make sure I ask about the business. I want to make sure I ask about how they're doing personally. How's their mindset? Well, the reality is all that stuff comes out. You know, if you're really listening, and you're really picking up, I pick up a lot in nonverbal cues. You know, the one-to-one you and I had, I went in and I'm like, okay, Brandon, something's wrong. Let's talk about what's going on. You're just not yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned to just call it and let the client lead it instead of me leading it. So that was probably my biggest learning the first 6 months, is the client will lead it because they want it. They've invited it in, right?
Yeah.
And they want somebody that they feel safe with, they can talk to about anything. That doesn't happen in very many relationships. I don't.
No, I agree.
So
How long
I
did it,
found,
how,
go ahead.
sorry, no,
No.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it takes a little time too, because not everybody opens up the first session. But I found by the third session, people were very fluent. They felt really
That's good
safe.
feedback. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can go 3 deep and then you're getting the repertoire you're looking for.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Yep.
good.
Totally.
What, how long did it take you to get that first client? 6 months, 3 months, 2 months? What are we talking? Now, this was a tough period of time too, so
Hmm.
it may not be scale. I'm just trying to get somebody in the audience who may be looking at doing this as a career path. Like, what did it take for you?
I was prepared to let it take a year, right?
Wow.
I
Okay.
didn't know what it was going to look like. And I would say within 4 months, I had a client. And it came from somebody in my past. I ended up out of the clear blue, somebody from my past called up and said, I'm on a board and the CEO is really struggling. The board's not really functional. And I always loved the advice you gave me over the years informally. Would you
Oh
talk to
wow.
this guy? And he was out in the Midwest, actually. We got on a call. We're doing Zoom before the latest versions of Zoom. We'll talk about that. And we started meeting every 2 weeks, and I just saw this guy transform. We talked about crucial conversations. There was somebody on his board that was being a bully. I know that's hard to
Mm.
believe, but went their own way, was bullying the CEO in some levels. And we talked about strategies, how to manage that, how to deal with that. And that really, really built my confidence. Like, we're talking CEO level, and it went extremely well. After 1 year, we parted ways. I just talked to him, I don't know, a couple months ago, and things were going really, really well. They were doing
Oh, that's awesome.
acquisitions. So, and the bully wasn't on the board anymore. But that was my first one. Kind of came out of the blue. And then I built, at this whole time, I was building, my Vistage CEO group, which involves coaching. I did more coaching before I actually brought the group up. But one of the things people don't know about the pandemic was some of you were more available to talk because you were sitting at home, right? Or you could only be in Zoom. You couldn't go anywhere, right? And so, in some ways, I felt like I got more conversations going
Mm.
because people were more ready to talk to somebody and had more time. And like they couldn't go to the office, you know what I'm saying?
Couldn't find a
And
therapist. Yeah.
that's right. They couldn't. That's right.
No, they were it, and they couldn't find them anywhere.
No, they
That
couldn't. And so, yeah, yeah. So that took about 6 months.
okay. Wow, that's really good. Um, what do you see as the major differences between being a leader and consulting a leader?
Um, Being a consultant to a leader, you get to have a third party view,
Hmm.
and being in it, you're in the moment. And I think the biggest thing I like is about what I do is giving them that third party view and helping that CEO or executive really grab hold of their strengths, right? And teach, right? It's a real teachable time. When you're in it, there's a lot of decisions going on all the time, and you're making
Hmm.
it in the moment. Where when you're working with a coach can put in and say, let's process that now. Let's just slow it down. Let's talk about, is that a good thing? Is it going to work out? Did you look at this angle? Did you look at that angle? So it is different, very different.
Hmm.
I mean, I have people saying that would ask me, what would you do? Right? Sometimes I answer it and sometimes I don't. It depends on the situation.
No, I think that's really interesting because I think when you can get in those roles, it's almost like a runaway train sometimes. And so, how do
Mm-hmm.
you stop yourself from or keep yourself in check from an advice standpoint?
That is the biggest challenge
Mm.
because I'm a highly resourceful person. I do want to solve it. And I don't like to see people in pain. But here's the deal. Usually, this is what I say in my head, and I did this when I was an exec. I'm going to ask 3 questions before I answer that. And that was
Okay.
something that I used when I was an executive. People would bring me a problem, and I knew I could solve it sometimes, though it may not have been the right answer. And so I trained myself to ask 3 questions. And so you may say to me, what should I do about profitability? Is it right? And I might ask you 3 questions. What's your competitor doing? How do you judge yourself at being good or not good enough? So you're going to get questions back, even though I do get a lot of direct questions, but I've learned to ask the questions because my job is to help you find the answer, not me to give the answers. Does that make
That
sense?
is a very simplistic, genius way of handling that.
Really? You think?
I don't think you've ever said that before. I don't remember you saying that, but that is a really simplistic, easy way to slow yourself down. I'm notorious for running instead of walking.
Yes, me
so
too.
I got to really put that into place because I get instantly like, check it off the list, right? I'm just solving problems. But you can really get yourself in a bad space doing that way too quick.
Well, nobody learns from it if you give the answers. If you ask them questions, or if I ask you questions, you get the learning, right? If you learn from that, or I get to learn how you think, right? Or how you arrive at a decision, either scenario is a good situation, because if I learn how you're thinking, we'll make better decisions, right? You'll make better decisions because I can put in and say that 360 look. Are you sure that really is what you want to accomplish? Did you think about this outcome? When you're working with an employee, I used to teach supervisors all the time, you need to help people know how to think. They're in a very small box a lot of times, right? And so when you ask them, why did you decide to do what you do? You get to understand the motivations and what they're thinking, but you get to tweak it to fit your culture and the job, right? But yeah, because we as leaders are so good at running around making decisions. And that's the other big decision. I don't have to make as many decisions anymore. Like when I was a leader in a company, now I get to guide people to the decisions. That's
fair. Yeah. And I think the 3 questions also slows you down from being reactionary as well. And I think that could be be helpful in a lot, or not make a subjective decision because you're annoyed at something else, right? And then you just fly off the handle about something completely unrelated. That's really good. I like that. When you're prospecting, which you were doing, which you're probably still doing a little bit of, but what do you think your ideal customers are looking for from your type of services?
I think what they're looking for and what we talk about are 2 different things.
Ooh.
Are you ready for this? Yes. They'll talk about, they might have, confidence issue, or they might have profitability issues, or like one guy was having a lot of staff issues. People issues is probably the number one reason they come to talk to me. But the reality is most people are looking for somebody that's safe and they feel very alone in it. That is what they want. They do not know it until they go through coaching, that they're missing it. It's true. It takes everything in me not to mention it. But yeah, most of the time I got employee issues. I'm new to the job. I work with a lot of new CEOs. That's a confidence issue, right? Or I need help reading. One of the CEOs that came to me is like, I know you got a financial services background. Can you coach me on reading financials and how to get a... You weren't what I was thinking of. That comes up more than you realize, actually. What things do I need to know? Cash flow. So they might start there. But really, when you don't feel like you can read financial statements, is a lonely place, right? Because as executive, who are you going to ask? You can ask certain people, but you only get partial answers. So, so they usually come in with a specific need. They usually get to that place where they're looking forward to the sessions that we have, and it relieves that isolation, loneliness issue.
Why do you think we mask it? Insecurity?
Some of it might be insecurity. Some of it, I don't think we even recognize it in ourselves until the pain's been relieved. So you may not have been able to name it because you didn't really know what that emotion was that you were feeling. It was stored back somewhere, right? You're just looking at what's in front of your face. And then when you experience having somebody in there with you, guiding you, teaching you, directing you, all of a sudden you have this feeling of oh, it's not so bad. Like, I wasn't alone. I can ask somebody for help. And maybe it's a little bit of ego. I have ego too. Like, there's times I don't
Yeah,
want to
we all
ask
do.
anybody for help. I think I have it all figured out, right? It's a
And then
big,
life slaps you in the face.
well, that, and it's like, yeah, you have to be fairly humble to ask for help,
Yes.
right? You have to
Yeah.
be with somebody you feel like you're safe when they're going to make you feel like an idiot for asking for help, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of your world wraps around inclusivity. Um, and I know everybody hates the word safe space, but it's what you have to create every single time. And that probably evolves for you every time you sit down on a one-to-one, because it all depending on how we show up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be consistent in all those regards, but if we're showing up, like you said, closed off or whatever, then it doesn't help the situation at all.
No, it doesn't. And when I first started coaching, I would go all prepared. Oh, we need, like I said, we had to cover all these things. But what I found was just really zoning into where that person was. And I've let go of all that, recognizing that every coaching session is going to look different. And that's good. That's good, especially when there's growth. When people start really growing, it's like an addiction. You want more of it, right? It's a good thing. It's a good addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you just want more and more of it. And that's when I get excited, when I see breakthroughs of growth and everybody's internal confidence is growing. There are people that you're going to run into and they're going to seem all confident, but I know what gets said behind closed doors with the two of us that builds that confidence, that they can go out and feel really, really confident, really grounded, because we all struggle with it, right? But yeah, and we have to have a certain amount of confidence if we're going to be in leadership to lead other people. That doesn't mean we aren't scared. Doesn't mean we don't have fears. Doesn't mean that we don't feel insecure. That's all part of being a really good leader. I'd be concerned if you weren't, if I wasn't, because I think you're a better leader if you lean into those things, because it makes you more human. It really does.
Yeah, I think going into Vistage or going into leadership consulting or being coached, I should say, I don't think, I had no idea because I didn't understand the chair I was even sitting in for most of the time. So you're going in to just be like, I was like, hey, this is like a team. This sounds fun. I'm not even sure what's happening right now.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. And
but
yeah,
then very
we tell
quickly
ourselves stories, right?
Oh, totally. I was an idiot. Yeah, completely. But very quickly, you learn perspective so fast. Is like one of the most powerful things you can learn in a group setting. And not only with the one-to-ones, but from a group setting perspective, like when you are wrapped around the axle and people are like, it's okay, I've been there. You're like, what? Like, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
I think one of the things I learned from you, and that's the cool part of coaching, you learn from everybody and you learn things you can take to other coaching sessions, right? That's so fun because, and one of your breakthroughs was, I didn't realize when I was the boss, I could ask for help, right? We think we have to know it all. And you are not the only one that's brought that out. I hear that a lot. Well, I thought I had to know everything. I thought I had to be on top of everything. No, you can ask for help. All of us have to ask for help.
Yeah, I remember struggling with that when I started my career. When I came out of college, I remember it feeling like work was supposed to be a competition because college was a competition. All of college was a competition. And then you step into the workplace and I'm literally trying to learn everything. And my boss finally looked at me and is like, just go ask like Ben about that. He's really good at it. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, he's better at it than you. Go ask him. And I was like, what? This is happening? And I realized like, holy you don't have to climb over everyone. Like it blew my mind. But I think
but everything's new. I mean, anytime you go into something new, you go through those cycles of fear and insecurity. And in leadership, a lot of times you make decisions that you're going to have to step into your fear and lead people and not know exactly how it's going to turn out. You got to go on a hope and a prayer a little bit. But again, having a coach helps you sort it all out, right?
Sure.
Ahead of time. But you still have to step into the fear of the unknown sometimes in leadership.
So you're using Vistage as like one of your main vehicles for your leadership coaching. What's your experience with working with them? How's that going? How do you feel about it?
It's going well. They teach us a lot. They teach us some coaching. They just came out with a coaching program, I think, that's on their website. I learn a lot from other people that are leading Vistage groups. If I have a real stuck with a coaching client or something that goes on in our group meetings, I have somebody to call, and say,
Mm.
can I issue process this with you? So they do good. They do good. They do well at, you can tell if I'm like,
This
they
is no
do,
judgment zone.
they do well at resourcing us. So I feel really good about that. I really like the model that we work in, and that it's not a template. So we as coaches can show up with our own style. They don't put us in a box and say, a lot of coaching practices, you'll go through training and then you have to do it their way, like through a template. They're not like that. And that gave me a lot of freedom to use my intuition and my experience to apply to my coaching. So having the group meetings, I think there's nothing like it, honestly.
I agree.
You can have a coaching session, a one-to-one, and there's often in those one-to-ones, I'll tell you or whoever's in that group, bring it to the group. They'll bring it to the group, and all of a sudden that fear that was huge becomes small. And that's what happens in group settings. It's like when you put it out there, it gets smaller. I don't know. It's been amazing to watch. I have seen things that were processed in one-to-ones and then people brought to the group, and it made a huge difference. Just made a huge difference. Could be something personal or business. So there's value in the one-to-ones, but there's a lot of value in group, and that's why I like that model, because my husband's a therapist. He used to say sometimes when you're dealing with something heavy, a lot of it's just putting it out there and speaking it helps it. It just minimizes the pain of it or the feeling of it. And I've watched that in this group.
Yeah, it's really good. What do you think the best part about being a Vistage chair is?
It's all good. I love the group meetings. I love the dynamics of watching fellow execs, whether it's my key group or my CEO group, come together and create bonds, because it's really about relationship at the end of the day. And they get perspectives that are broader than mine. And that to me, I walk away from group meetings and I'm like, wow, we really have this amazing energy. These guys and ladies, there's both in the group, really stick together. They care about each other. That's the beauty of it. It goes beyond coaching. It goes to like group coaching. And the group meetings are so energizing. I love the group meetings. You never know what's going to come at you when you're the chair, when you're leading the group. And even with the speakers that come in and how they challenge you to think outside the box, they challenge me too. It's not just the group to think outside the box. That's what I like the best. I really do like the group meetings. I love when I see people creating, I think some of them are going to be lifetime relationships.
I agree. What's the worst part?
What's the worst part? I still have, like a regional Vistage boss to report to, but so I'm not entirely my own boss.
Understood. I get it.
But it's not bad. It's a good relationship, but I'm pretty close to being my own boss.
Yeah, understood. With all the options out there, and I want you to kind of toot your own horn or Vistage's horn. Out of all the options that are out there, why choose Vistage specifically? Because the main concern I hear with people is it's expensive, which it is. Mm-hmm. But what do you get for that expense really is, what do you think? Why choose it specifically?
I think there's a lot of reasons why. The chairs are passionate, the leaders that get into it, which I think other groups that's true, but you will find most of the Vistage chairs are doing it out of passion for more than anything else. Two, a lot of the groups have a component of getting together as a group, but Vistage adds on CEO coaching. If you're going to get CEO level coaching, the cost is right there. and what you're getting on a one-to-one. And if you went out and marketed and said, if I went with another coach, what would it cost? And then you get multiple coaches, is how I looked at our group meeting. You get coaches from your peers, right? And the dynamic of the group and how we issue process and how we hold each other accountable in that group. Like, I don't see any other group quite doing it that way. I really don't. I think they do educate. I think other groups educate. I think they have good leadership, but it doesn't have all the pieces, the coaching, the issue processing, the quality of speakers. That's why I picked it. I was a Vistage member when I was in banking for 12 or 13 years. And it was the only place that I got really solid outside thinking, right? And having speakers come and talk about new trends or things that we need to look at. That's why I thought it was so valuable. Kind of meandering here a little bit, but the coaching, the group meetings, and also we have the portal. So quite a few of our members go in that portal and they'll ask questions, and you'll get an answer from somebody in California with that issue.
It's like a leadership Reddit.
It is. And sometimes they're looking for your kind of company to do something, right? So there's a little bit of that goes on too. So that's powerful. And then we get video speakers that you can use with your teams. We're going to get James Clear in August. We had Marcus Buckingham. We've had Simon Sinek, and they come in and they do a training video, and then you can share it with your teams too.
That's good. What other consulting do you do outside of Vistage?
Right now I'm doing mainly coaching. So I have several executives and I'm just doing the coaching piece. And you'll say, why aren't they in your Vistage group? Is that the reason they're not my Vistage group is because they're out of state. I have Illinois, Denver, Colorado, got 2 out there. So they're out of state, and I'm doing their coaching by Zoom. Love it though. It's so fun. So fun. New perspectives.
Yeah, I can imagine. What has surprised you about this portion of your career in the consultancy? Like, what jumps out that you didn't expect?
That's a really good question. I knew it was my passion, but you know what? I got really attached. I'm really attached to the people in a very deep emotional way. Probably not supposed to be as a coach, but I really care about my people, right? And sometimes that's hard too, when the relationship has to change or they have to go on and do other things. That's hard. It's like losing a family member for me. And I didn't expect.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think I expected it. It's not just business for me. And to some ways, it is a job, right? I'm coaching, but these people are part of who I am. Most of the ones I've coached that have moved on and don't need coaching anymore, we still stay in touch, but it's not like seeing them every 2 weeks. It's just different. And it's like losing a family member for me. And so it takes me a couple months to kind of do my own little mini grieving. And then I'm okay.
I can see that. I mean, because the conversations get so deep, right? And you get so invested in their growth. And I can see how that'd be so hard to unleash from, I guess.
Yeah, you get to know their families. You get to know everybody. And yeah, it is hard. And part of it for me is I'm always looking for but I'm always seeing the potential that's waiting next. So we might have coached through something, but now I'm like, oh, you got the potential to do X. But sometimes I don't really talk about it. I lead through it because I can't live through what I see. They have to choose that, right? I can lead that. Yeah, I can lead them there, but it still has to be their choice whether they want to go there. So I got asked this before, is like, what's your superpower? And I think for me, it's to see potential, and it's always there, right? But I have to pace it, and it has to be what the person wants to, right? So, so when someone leaves, I feel like, oh, we didn't do the next milestone in potential, right? So I think that's a loss for me too,
Sure.
even though
So
everything's good. It's never done it's always done in a really good way. So
no, I get that, but you're right. You're seeing things being left on the table, and you just want to help them get to that next phase.
I
Yeah,
do. I do.
I can see that. If someone's AR May 2020 and they're thinking about leaping into something like this, and let's say they had some leadership experience in their past or looking to
Mhm.
make kind of a career switch, give me three things from what you learned from this so far. What are three things you would tell them to focus on right away?
Get in a coaching program and get coached for a period of time.
Mm.
So let somebody coach you. That was just powerful for me by doing that, because it really dug into my blind spots. That's really critical. To find someone who's your cheerleader, because starting
Ooh.
out, I had it too, right? Starting out is hard. And if you're passionate about it, you have to have people that cheer you on to your passion, that remind
Mm.
you that you're good at this and keep to your passion. And what's the third one? I would say I did this. I talked to 3 or 4 other coaches and I asked them how they did it and what did they focus on and what training did they do and what they thought they were good at. And that was really insightful because different coaches come at it different ways. And that's important. It's important to find out other people have been there, what it's like.
Yeah, that's good. What was your sales pitch? Like, I remember how we had a conversation on LinkedIn, but I'm wondering what other people's were.
Um, that's really interesting.
The
Um,
reason I ask is because I get tons of LinkedIn messages around leadership coaching, and it's like, hey, most people are terrible at these 10 things. I'm sure this is just like you. So how about I help you? And I'm like, okay, this doesn't work. First of all, you don't even know if I'm terrible at these things. And I know you didn't do that. So I'm wondering, like, what was your approach in that early on?
my approach was more of in a consultative way of, one, hey, you're in a leadership role. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. And what's your
Mm,
biggest challenge? And the hardest part is getting somebody on the phone. A lot of people resist that because they feel like they're obligated to follow through on buying something. So I try to be really careful about, I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is an opportunity for us to talk and see if there's a mutual fit. Kind of goes back to what I
right.
told you before. It has to be a mutual fit and a rapport. And I had little scripts put together, but I found out after a couple informative questions: what's the size of your company? How did you become the CEO? People want to talk. All I have to do is say, what's your biggest challenge? They talk. They give me 3. They give me 4. And then there's my intuitive coach clicks in and says, how would it feel if we had time to talk about those 4 things that you just brought up? So you're not having to do it yourself.
Mm,
And how would it feel if you went to a group meeting and you had other peers sitting there with the same issues or issues they've already had yours and they've already come out with solutions that can help you? And that's usually pretty powerful
that's
with
good.
most
That's really good.
CEOs. And there was some that we had the conversation and it didn't work out, and that's okay too, right?
Sure.
Um, I went into every sales call. There's a sales side of me, but I went into every sales call with, I wanted to get to know people, even if they didn't choose to work with me. It was always an opportunity to get to know somebody.
Mm, that's really good. I can
It's
see
the
how you rope me
hardest.
in.
It's the hardest part of the job, though, the recruiting, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure.
It's probably the least part of the job I like because I have to sell myself, but that's okay. It's part
No,
of
I
it.
know it is tough because there's so much of it going on, and how do
It
you separate
is.
yourself from the pack?
There is a lot of it right now, and just like
Yeah,
any other business, there's good coaches and not good coaches. You have to sort through it. It's kind of
yep,
like the old days. They'd say, if you're going to get a therapist, it doesn't work out after 3 sessions, go find another therapist. And same with coaching, right?
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Fair
If that's
point.
not the right person, find the one that is, right? You don't have to put up with coaching that's not getting you somewhere.
Yeah.
But not
Based on
everybody's
your
the same.
experience. Yeah, no, very true. Based on your experience, what is the most common leadership gap?
Leadership gap. I could think of a couple gaps. Let me think which one I think is the biggest.
Or you can give me a couple. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I think one of the gaps is giving a non-performing person too many chances.
Ooh, guilty.
Obviously, a lot of other people are. It's number one. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sometimes, yeah. I find CEOs really know, and they still are like, well, one more try. If I try one more thing, it'll be okay. So I'd say that's number two is, I think some of it is financial statements and understanding how to make decisions from them, not reading them, but how do they guide decisions? And so forecasting is a conversation that I have on a lot of one-to-ones. It's great that you have cash for the next 30 days. What's it going to look like in 6 months? Right. And it's a tool. So I think that would maybe be 2 or 3 up there that I see a gap.
Okay.
Because most CEOs just like what they do. They don't have to worry about the finances, right? But third, their own blind spots of how they show up as they're part of the problem.
That's good. Those are real good ones.
Yeah.
I think I check all those boxes.
No, not you. You have a great coach.
Yeah, fair point. Budding.
Just kidding.
Sales tool.
That's right.
What's a very simple way for someone to fast track their career? Since it's exactly what you did.
That's a simple way?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't know that it's simple. I think I make it
What's a hard
sound
way?
simple. It's hard. Staying really aligned with your passion and not let obstacles get in your way. I mean, deal with them. Don't let your emotion get in the way if you don't get results right away. And get a coach, obviously, to help you with it.
Wow.
But I thought it was hard. I'll be honest. As reward, it's very rewarding. Don't get me wrong, very rewarding. But it is also hard too. There's a lot of hard issues that you can walk out of a one-to-one and you go, oh my gosh, I've got to go get a loan for a while, right? Because there's tough stuff. It can be really hard. But does that change my passion? No, it's still there. So I don't know there's an easy or simple way other than to get up and keep doing it. And as you well know, you know this, but I'm a ferocious reader. I think it helps when you're a coach to really read a lot of stuff that's out there because it brings something to your practice. So that's really important. Is it hard to read all the time? Yeah, I'd rather go do something else, but I love reading, but I still have to make the time for it.
Sure.
So I don't think it's really easy. I just think you got to keep doing it.
Okay. Keep showing
If you're going to get to the rewarding side, you got to do the hard work.
Yeah, that's good. What is the proper way to lead people?
That's a big question. Well, it takes 2 things, I think, to lead. One, you have to know yourself as a leader, and you have to know where your audience, the people, are. There's going to be a gap if you don't know yourself because you're going to be like a bull in a china shop or be out of rhythm or out of pace with your employees, right? But if you know where your employees are and what their concerns are, and you learn how to pace it, I would say that's the biggest challenge of leadership, because leadership's always wanting to change and get to the next mountain over the next mountain. But the people you're leading, you have to find the pace and the language for them to get them. Does that make sense?
Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I still think our own ignorance is like it's our biggest downfall.
Yeah, leaders really need to listen to their employees, right? So they know when they can speak up and how to speak up. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's good. That's really good.
Takes a lot of
Um,
EQ.
yeah, never stops. Continuous improvement on EQ.
I know. Me too. Because I like to talk, but I've learned to listen.
Yeah. I mean, back to the book thing. I hate reading myself, which is why I started a book club, because it makes me accountable to people at work to read a book. Because I knew I couldn't do it myself. So you can't just say that you don't know how to do it. If you are more of a group accountability person, then just create a group and solve the problem. That's what I had to do. Now I have two of them.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, because
That's a great solution.
I knew I wouldn't do it myself. I would read it, I would check the box, but I wouldn't dig in. And you want to hold yourself accountable to reading, put yourself in a group twice a week and talk with your fellow employees or whoever, people on LinkedIn, whatever, friends, start a group book club, because then you won't just read to get it off the list. You'll read to understand. And it's a
Yeah,
whole different ballgame.
it really is.
Um, So that is all the questions I had. I wanted to end, and I didn't think about this one until we were going through. So I want to put myself on the hot seat a little bit. Since everybody's like, oh, she's your coach, she probably knows all the inner workings. What was the biggest change or evolution from when we started to where we are now? Like, as me as a person, like, what did you see the biggest change in from your time with coaching me?
Confidence.
Holy
Way
shit.
up.
I didn't expect that one. Really?
Yeah. You come across
Wow.
very confident, but you're confident because you got into the data and because that's your thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
early conversation we had was about people and a couple about processes. And when I saw that's what you were about, I worked with you to get the data because I knew data meant something to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I see how you've applied it. I've also seen how you've really grown in your people skills.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah,
I would agree
massively.
with that.
Yeah, and your confidence to lead and recognizing you're just not going to know everything. You just got to step into
That's
it. Leaders
good.
don't know it all. I think that, you know, a lot of CEOs feel like they have to know it all. You don't need to know it all. And that's what I was really proud of you when you're like, oh, well, nobody else does either. We're all figuring it out, right?
I think you're right. I think it's getting comfortable in your own skin, realizing that, like, holy shit, we're all just trying to figure this out.
I know. You said to me, well, I'm just a nerd. And I'm like, be you. Remember I
Yeah.
said, just be you, right?
Yeah, I do
That's
remember
the
that.
beauty of leadership is we're all different in our personalities. Just be you. And
Mm.
there, and I saw when you really claimed that too, right? Instead of listening to voices that said, well, Brandon, you should do this, or you should dress like this, or you should do that. And my thing is, be remembered for you. None
Mm.
of that matters.
I think I took it too far.
It's like, how did you take it? You didn't take it too far.
You created a monster.
It's a good one. I like it.
Oh my God, this was wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was one, you taught me so many things I didn't know. I thought I would have known everything in this list, but you dropped some insight that I wasn't aware of. Even some
Oh.
historical stuff on AR that I didn't know. So thank you for that. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I was a little scrapper in my younger years.
Well, no, I hope we didn't get into any areas you didn't want to talk about, but no, I think it was
No, we're
wonderful.
good.
I do think it really, I want to, touch on it coming across about Vistage specifically, being in the group for, oh my gosh, is this going to be 4 years in November?
Yeah,
3
coming
years
up
for me?
for you.
Yeah, in November. So it's just been like we talked about multiple times, the perspective piece is so important. You're always going to have those times when you're really down. You can protect yourself as much as you can against them, but having a group, having a coach, whatever that looks like, even if it's not with this, it's just, I think I'm with you, a coach in general, especially at the C-suite or any supervisor level. It's just, with people, it's stressful. You're going to need somebody to bounce ideas off, and sometimes it has to be outside the company. You don't feel weird doing that, but it's way easier when it is, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the drama sometimes inside and the baggage that comes with that. So thank you for coaching me for the
Yeah,
last three and a
it's
half
been
years.
fun.
It has been fun. It's been
Well,
wonderful.
yeah, this coach knows how to laugh. We always have a good time.
Oh my God, yes. Thank goodness you have humor, and we both know how to swear in our one-to-ones.
That's true.
We're a bunch of sailors in there. Do you want to promote anything besides the Vistage stuff we talked about here?
No, that's good. That's who I am.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming along, and thank you everybody for listening.
It was fun. Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah.
See ya.